This conference will now be recorded.
Well, I've got 5:31, so that's good. All right. So I'm going to call the commission meeting of Wednesday, December 16th. Please rise. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. To the republic which stands one nation, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Roll call, could you roll call? I appreciate it.
Ron Mulrick, absent.
He's excused for health reasons.
Okay. Mrs. Sanchez,
Present.
Mr. Best,
Here.
Mr. Nguyen,
Present.
Mr. Wood.
Here. Okay. Mr. Hunt, any communications from the public?
There have not been any significant communications from the public to share.
Okay. All right. We've all got the minutes from the meeting of 2 months ago, the last meeting we had. Are there any amendments to that?
I move that we accept the minutes as printed.
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Minutes are accepted. Any new business?
Well, thank you everyone for coming out, and what I think I would probably do is I'll probably have there. I think tonight would be more of a discussion. What we wanted to do after talking to the mayor a couple months back, we wanted to do a neighborhood first initiative. So to start that process, I think we wanted to focus on how to identify the neighborhood. So what I'll do tonight is I'll take you through a slideshow presentation. David, I don't know if it might work best for you to turn around or you can come over here. But with that being said, I'll swing up there and start the presentation.
Question.
So I'm fairly new to Barberton, but many of you lifelong residents or folks that have lived here for a number of years may not know some of these places by name, but I'm here to share that with you in our research. Again, general conversation tonight. What we really want to gather, I think, is kind of determining what neighborhoods resonate with the folks that live here in Barberton. So I think that's really the essence, if I could sum it up in one nutshell here. So how did we start? It really began Justin Halter in the mayor's office. After we had a conversation with the mayor, he was very helpful. We went over to the library. I went through some of their historical documentation. This is just an image of that first day. When we went over there, this is one of the maps they had. They had about 50 maps in their inventory. We also heavily relied on the internet. The auditor site, I think, had a lot of surveys and plats, the Summit County Auditor. So what I was hoping to do tonight is just what you see here on the agenda, kind of review the neighborhood map. There are two maps, as you see before you, the original map and then an alternate map. And there'll be some supporting evidence of how we came up with that. And then we can kind of talk, do these neighborhood names make sense? Are there some districts? Should we modify these neighborhoods, add or delete some of the neighborhoods? I guess this might be a conversation too that we bring out to roll out to the community later, but we're looking for some general guidance tonight. Again, more or less a conversation, and then we'll maybe talk a little bit more in detail about the maps, some boundary modifications. Really looking for your input and guidance. So, and then to finalize things, we'll talk about next steps, what makes sense. If anyone has questions, again, it's more of a conversation, so I think we can have an open dialogue. I don't think there's any need really wait until the end of the evening to hold any questions or anything like that. So yeah, here we go. The map before you, looks like part of the screen's getting cut off there, but you can at least see most of what we're hoping to achieve there. So again, you can reference the maps in front of you. This original map identified 16 neighborhoods. We shared this with the mayor about 2 weeks ago. We got some initial feedback from him. So what you'll see with the question marks in the purple areas are really no man's land. We couldn't find any historical evidence that they were really belonged to a neighborhood when they were platted. So that's going to be a key question that we'll want to kind of address tonight. So I'm going to take you through, you see the 16 names there on the left hand of the screen, as well as the unknown areas. I'm going to walk you through kind of how we got to each neighborhood. And they're all alphabetical. So Austin Village, Justin did a really nice write-up for each neighborhood. I won't spend a lot of details on that. I'm hoping to send this out once we get more into depth and finalize things. But it's a good start at least. You can kind of see some of what he's put together there and a little write-up there for the neighborhood. So this is a zoom in. This is from Hollister and Newman. Some information we found at the library. The Austin Village, I thought was pretty clear that it's south of Robinson and east of Fifth Street. That's what historically I think a lot of folks have known as Austin Village. So I'll just continue on it. Feel free to stop me if you have questions or comments or what have you. Boulevard Heights. So somebody may say, where's Boulevard Heights? This is in the northern part of the city. And this is from a 1950 Hopkins map. This is our source. So the area in blue there, just a little bit of a larger screenshot. So this is kind of northwest of Worcester Road there, and closer up by the I-76 interpass. In fact, I think the I-76 interpass bisects this neighborhood.
So, Trevor, where are all of these names coming? Are they old names or?
So all of these are old names, so historic names given when they're platted. So I guess really one of the questions tonight is, do these resonate still? Were they just something that the developer put down, on paper when he took it to the Summit County auditor years back to plat these? Or do they really have a meaning tied to them, an association, so to speak? This will be interesting because, the next one, Columbia Lake. David, I'm sorry if you had questions.
No, I mean, I can see the logic behind Boulevard Heights. So, okay.
We'll probably circle back on this one after I conclude the original map presentation. After speaking with the mayor the other week, this neighborhood was labeled Columbia Lake, and rightfully so. It's down there near Columbia Lake where PPG operates. After speaking with the mayor the other week, I don't know if it was Columbia Lake or Columbia Heights. There's another portion of the neighborhood that's shown there on the alternate neighborhood map.
Columbia Heights is where I grew up, that's what I know it as.
That's what you know it as, right? So
That's what I was known as.
Yeah.
That's Captain Park.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything on the hill.
Okay, south of Hudson Run.
So that's what I guess we're kind of looking for too, to draw out where the associations where residents live and what they've known it for. So I think that one, Columbia Heights, that's me. Columbia Lake, I don't know if that resonates with anyone, right? You might want to tie it to another neighborhood. So that is the blow up there. East Barberton. This is a very common name. I can't tell you how many times I've heard this since starting work at Barberton. East Barberton, West Barberton, South Barberton. The directional way of finding your neighborhoods, right? So this is showing only a portion of what we identified, because I think there's a later portion added to East Barberton, it was platted a little bit later. This is from the 1915 Hopkins map.
And having grown up on there, we didn't call it East Barberton, we just called it the East Side, because we knew what we were in, but matches historically what I remember.
Glenbriar, we didn't have too much documentation, probably because this is a more recent neighborhood, but this is at least an area from Esri kind of documenting where Glenbriar is.
That's the only thing that's ever gone.
Is Glenbriar. This is probably one of our smaller neighborhoods, geographically. So Grandview. This area is kind of the northwest portion of the city. Think of Hopkinton Gardens. The area kind of southeast of there. And this is a blow up that area. Yeah, that was planted as Grandview neighborhood.
That,
Okay, a little bit.
that area. It's interesting that Grandview Street is not in Grandview.
Right.
Yeah, really.
It's a bit confusing, but
Yeah, for sure. I've never heard of it.
Johnson's Corner is here. This is a pretty historic neighborhood. I think this is where a couple of the historic properties, the hotel, David, that we've gone by. And yeah, this area actually may predate O.C. Barber's coming into town and incorporating.
yeah. So, not that I remember personally. Close.
So, and the hotel moved down the road.
Yeah.
That's what we have there. Lake Anna. This probably resonates with most folks in Barberton. This is where also the historic downtown is. So we'll be talking about sub-districts later. I think downtown's an obvious sub-district of the Lake Anna district. A lot of the maps we reviewed, Lake Anna was predominantly displayed, probably because it was one of the first neighborhoods founded in the, it's the original plat of Barberton. So this is from the Retrograph Abstract and Title Company in 1910. And this was another one we found. This one's a little bit harder to read, but that's the original plat.
True blueprint.
This is the New Haven neighborhood. This is probably the only other neighborhood that we don't have any evidence of it being platted. I mean, there's plenty of evidence, but I guess we don't have the historic plat.
That's definitely it was just annexed a few years ago. And
Yeah.
thought they were going to call this, unit.
This is the new Portage neighborhood. I'm going to blow this up a little bit here. So this is also from the 1910 Retrograph and Abstract Title Company. A little bit hard to read there, but you see, I wish I would have brought the laser pointer. You see Brown Street, Meriwether Tone. Actually, think of that area today. I believe the Native American statue that we have is actually in the Van Hynen neighborhood, even though it's New Portage Native American statue. Just something to know.
Yeah, for what it's worth, I was gonna say that, I mean, if you look at that right behind that statue is a very small neighborhood where I live, and I would bet you a non-scientific survey with nobody there would say they're part of Maine.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're not our own neighborhood, we probably consider ourselves part of the Newport. The Erie Street, Floyd, Ontario, and Huron district definitely not consider themselves part of mining, but part of this, if not its own small neighborhood.
Yeah. So we can get into those details here too. Maybe that's a subdivision district of Newport should more weight. So, again, up for interpretation and conversation. North Barberton. As the name implies, this is on the north part of town, so. This would include the Barberton Sports Complex. I'm trying to think, I don't think the high school and middle school are accounted for here. I think that'd be that. So this was kind of we were kind of stuck by this for a while. The area south downtown. I think there were some Diamond Match Company properties down there historically. It's kind of the area nestled in between 2nd Street and BWXT. There's actually a Palmer Avenue, but we found a historic Palmer allotment after a lot of searching there. This is from the 1910 rectograph and abstract. I don't know how many folks would that Palmer name would really resonate with. We found it. South Barberton, this is a couple different names, and probably something that we can talk about later when we talk about neighborhood names and how they're identified, but Snyder side's been a common one over the past.
Actually, like the known Snyder.
Snyder Town, yeah. So,
I think it was a little village, some before Barberton.
there's a blow up of that. This is the Van Hyden neighborhood that we kind of talked about a few moments ago. This is really a small area as well. It kind of zigzags in and out on the map that I shared with you all. So this is from a 1874 plat, the Tackberry Mead and Moffett plat. And I think this is our last neighborhood, at least on the original platted map. So West Barberton. Also, this is a common one that comes up, just the geographic name associated with this part of town. So, here's a blow up. So then there's the alternate map, right? So if you look at this one compared to the first map that we just reviewed, the only differences are the addition of Columbia Heights, south of Columbia Lake, southwest of Columbia Lake, and then the Homewood neighborhood, which is just kind of northeast of East Barberton. You see it there in green. So we don't have anything historical for Columbia Heights. We couldn't find anything, doesn't mean there isn't anything out there. The Homewood neighborhood we did find, there's a small area that's platted there. Highland, Homewood Streets. That's what's included there. It's a blow up.
And I can't tell, does that include, Bill, does that include the section that Barberton annexed a few years ago, the Park Country? No. Can't think of the names of the streets.
Yeah.
Is that what it is, Rose?
What we found out with Belgrade property, the field next to it, back in the late 90s, the city annexed all that property, all the street, the home, but only the first 2 or 3 homes are farms. The rest of the homes are the cover street, because the road is ours. I don't know why you see the annexed just the road and not the homes. So, because you had the discussion with the homeowner about fixing the road, or the last cover street road.
There were, I think, villages that lived out there, that was Coventry.
The homes are Coventry, the road is.
The roads, yeah, I know, it was always confusing.
Are they on our building?
That makes sense.
They annexed all of that, right? So this is all I have for historical research. What I was hoping to do is that we can maybe just get into more of a discussion now. You know, what do we have down on paper that makes sense? What doesn't make sense? Any boundaries we kind of want to follow up on? We have those 3 question marks on the map. Where do those really belong? So,
Trevor, can you go back 1 slide, please?
sure.
Do you know what these north-south streets are? It's the names are about. East-west streets, but then we're talking about the,
Does the far one say, does it just say street?
yeah, it's a street, so.
It doesn't say.
I'm assuming that Fifth Street, up there towards.
That would be Fifth, right?
Yeah,
Because I've never heard of Homewood, and those, that would be very close to where I grew up, and it was always just the east side.
Maybe the area that's pink on the upper right-hand side, I see Macy, Grant, Milo. I don't know if those are the streets you're referring to.
No,
well, because it's got the State Street going diagonally kind of through the middle.
Yeah.
Those other streets are definitely not east of the state. They're west of the state. I don't think any of those go through on that side of the state.
Yep.
Yeah. He should not have right up where you live, Bill. But I mean, everything, all those streets go, I think, all the way from Van Buren to State. I don't think you can cross over State.
Sorry.
Maybe 1 or 2 of them do. That's also around Malvern.
yeah, which is only a few blocks up from me, and again, none of that. I've never heard this name Homewood.
No, I hadn't.
We looked at some of the property cards, just at random. Like where I grew up, it was called the Brinker lot. Never heard of that before.
Where was that though?
East Tusk, across from Sister.
Oh, yeah, okay.
But I never heard, it was always east side.
Yeah,
I moved to East Castle down by Van Buren, all the residents there called it the Lower East Side.
Oh,
Yeah, for lower side.
it was a nice term for it.
oh, and I grew up all the way to the southwest end down here that's a part of what's now called Johnson's Corner. But I never remember anybody calling that area that part South Johnson's Corner, but I guess I never heard it called anything else. It's just part of the west side or the southwest side.
We used to say lower west side, upper west side,
Oh,
when I was in the mayor's office, because they didn't know the difference. So
yeah.
if I said upper west side, Johnson's Corner's there, yes. You know, or Columbia Wood,
Yeah.
you know, but so we always went lower.
Yeah, because West Barberton includes the old Highland School and
Yeah,
so on. And
so that's the lower west side.
then Arnold was at the far end of what's
Yes,
now called
yeah.
Johnson's Corner. which I remember.
Previously, when we worked on the Barber Ford neighborhoods first, we went to South Barber, we did a lot of work with the residents. And it's funny, they would say how Snydertown was being bad connotation with that verbiage.
Yeah.
They kept referring to the neighborhood as that.
Yeah, it's got a negative connotation, but just what it was always called. And like I say, I think I had read that it was a little village on itself before Barberton was incorporated. Not like it was given that derogatory term.
I heard that George Snyder owned all that, was going to start his own town, and then sold out to O.C. Barber at some point.
Well, my husband was born and raised in Snydertown, you know, and his parents lived there for 50 years, and he always called it Snydertown. So it was always Snydertown. And it didn't mean anything bad or good,
Yeah.
that's just what it
That's
was called.
just, yeah, just. a
And,
neighborhood.
you know, he was a paper boy in that whole area, so it was always Snydertown.
Well, some of the residents thought they had a choice, and not all of them felt this way, but, you know, some of the neighborhood names focus around a landmark or an asset in that neighborhood. So,
Mhm.
some of the older residents felt, well, let's call it Washington Heights, from the former Washington Elementary School.
Yeah.
The newer neighbors, the residents, it's not there, they know nothing about Washington.
Right, so they just accept. My son calls it Snyderville.
School's been gone for a long time.
Yeah, a long time.
So rather than do it loud, inside your town, other than homes that were built in small.
As high as 6 years old.
You know, Nelson Point.
So what would you like, Trevor?
What I'm thinking is, just generally, I'll jump back here. Maybe, so the next slide kind of highlights the neighborhood names. Maybe we can kind of go through the neighborhood names, what makes sense, what doesn't make sense. So the way I view this is kind of a hierarchy, right? We have our city, and then we have our neighborhoods, and then there's the sub-districts or destinations within those neighborhoods. So maybe we can have kind of a broader conversation. Do all of these 16 or 18 neighborhood names make sense? Do they not make sense? You know, they carry really no weight with them today. Maybe it's worth viewing those as sub-districts or, you know, kind of throwing them out the window altogether. I don't want to decide that. I'm just looking for guidance from planning commission here and mayor.
I would just ask, what is the purpose of identifying all the names? What's the future use of those names, or where are we going with it?
Right. So I think the future is some neighborhood branding opportunities, marketing different neighborhoods, also coming up with strategies in terms of kind of right-sizing the neighborhoods. You know, I think some neighborhoods, I think they take different life cycles in terms of development. So kind of analyzing the housing market in different neighborhoods and being able to strategize. You know, this is getting really in depth with planning philosophy, but you can, I think, formulate a lot of strategy around neighborhood planning, individual neighborhoods, calling them out. And also, I think, giving them more pride within the neighborhoods once you identify those neighborhoods. So, you know, working with local artists to come up with, you know, different branding opportunities going from there.
And this may be nitpicking, but the area I lived in is part of Austin Village, which years ago, the general area before it expanded into the part that I lived in was Austin Estates. My dad and partner, Glenn, they actually did the Austin Village development, which is a good portion of that, most of that. So that's maybe neither here nor there. I think a lot of people would probably identify the area more as Austin Estates rather than Austin Village. Even though the development as it now stands, most where Bill and I both live. So.
Right. So yeah, that's I think a good dialogue to get into today, what really resonates. So you can't see it great because the screen's put out here, but Don, to your point, Austin Village is what we identified. Austin Estates was an alternate name for sub-neighborhood that we had there.
I've always referred to it as Austin Estates, even when I was younger. That whole area was.
Well, I didn't start developing Austin Village until maybe late 70s, early 80s.
And I still think most people call it Austin.
I think generally.
We agree with that.
But I mean, there's a sign, I think there's still some Austin Village, and that there wasn't in the development. So.
I would say that like a subset.
So you think the bigger thing is Austin
I
Estates?
think if you said Austin Estates, more people understand what that means. Basically, anything up there close to the hospital on that side.
A subset may be the Austin Village.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. Because like Dahlia and most North Azalea and so on, that's not part of Austin Village, but it's all part of Austin Estates.
The, all those condos they put in, what second?
on down the road. Villas, yeah, all those villas is part of Austin Village.
I mean, if you go down.
Oh,
Fifth Street,
Austin,
yeah,
some of those.
is that considered, what do you consider that?
Yeah, I don't know.
We added all that, there's all those condos up there, would you consider that Austin Estates?
Austin Lake Apartments, I think is officially what they're called. Yeah, I guess you.
Hey, Austin, you think I include that whole?
Because the borders that you just defined them, is what we used to call us in the state.
You should kind of have to go all the way down to Fifth Street. So.
Fifth Street all the way to Rockland.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Robinson,
If you Rockland, Fifth Street and
State.
Rockland, all the way to State, that whole square area.
You want to take a stab at maybe running down the list? And I know some of this isn't showing up on my PowerPoint here, but it's not showing up on the screen, but you can refer to the screen here and just maybe take a run down the list and see, hey, do these neighborhood names make sense? Like what we're saying here about Austin Estates rather than Austin Village. I think that would be a good exercise.
Well, and, you know, there's another subset thing that, yeah, obviously it makes a lot of sense, but downtown also does.
Well, I guess going back to your question about Boulevard Heights, I mean, I don't know what else to call it. I mean, other than Kenmore, you know.
Yeah.
Well, that was named with 15 before the interstate going through, so it's right at natural flow. I think that was Kenmore Road, Kenmore Avenue.
Kenmore Avenue, yeah.
Our-
My sister lived up, my sister.
I just wonder if anybody lives in Boulevard Heights knows it.
Well, that's a general question I was going to ask. I mean, obviously you've got, you know, 5 or so long timers here, but is there a plan to take this to the city in general and see what people think about their neighborhood?
Yeah, I think doing a survey is a good idea. Because, yeah, there's people who live on 29th Street that feel they're not a part of the west side. They're different from people on the 16th Street side.
Sherry, you actually live in Boulevard Heights, and you were aware of that?
Yes.
Oh, okay, okay.
Not right now.
But that's only because I sit on the planning commission. That's the only reason that I. Yeah, that's the only reason I do that.
What you're saying is you didn't know about it.
Right. I grew up in just.
Yeah.
I know that. So I know that. West side, east side. Cider Town, those all make sense to me.
I mean, there are a lot of areas here that just didn't really know what to call it. Like Palmer and some of those. I never would have come up with any name for that area. Just, like Palmer, I guess, just kind of almost like this little extension, couple streets inside of that.
But if you noticed on that map with Palmer, all the lots to the east of Second Street, it looks like they have individual parcel lots. They're all businesses. You have Topcraft, you have Lowe's, their parking lot for BWXT. So those stub streets that go off, there's only a few homes that are on the sub streets.
But you're all along that in the downtown.
My mom grew up on Wolf Street. I don't remember her ever having a name for it. She just always said, referred to it as the Wolf Street House.
I always said the South Second Street area.
Yeah.
That's how, South Second Street area. Then, you know, if I wasn't familiar with the road, but I kind of knew what this person on the phone was talking about, I'd say South Second Street area. Yes, then I knew exactly what he was talking about.
Now, I think Second Street is downtown.
But it took his map and it's gone.
Here we go. This might be easier to read. Here it is, showing up better now.
Where was the Rose Acres area? Is that one of the question marks? Rose Acres? That has to be like where it says 54.
It may be the very bottom because, Austin Village is
Yeah,
bordered by
Austin.
Robinson and so is Rose Acres.
Yeah.
It has to be the bottom of that question mark here,
I have to say it has to be Rose Acres.
including Belgrade Gardens and all
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
It's to the right of, or east of.
Right here. So maybe a good starting point is which map maybe makes more sense, and maybe neither makes complete sense, right?
Well, I think the Columbia Heights one is Jerry mentioned.
Yeah, that one.
It's a very
Well,
well-known,
Right.
so that,
That needs to sit,
Homewood, I don't know.
and Homewood, I think could probably go, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, it's just a phrase I've never heard, or a term I've never heard. So you were calling the area, the middle question mark area, Rose Acres?
No, Rose Acres is the area that is just north of Robinson and east of State Street that was country until
Oh,
years
okay.
ago, I forget.
It was,
Is it? Okay.
yeah.
Hospital station.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that, yeah, I mean, I still prefer, they still, because that's in my ward, and when I walked it, they call it Rose Acres.
Oh,
Those
okay.
people that live there call it Rose Acres.
But it's just a small part of that whole area that's got a question mark there.
Yeah, well, it goes all the way, I mean, you're looking at NOLA, Akron View, Rose
Yeah,
Acres.
that's got a strong name.
Yeah, it goes all the way down,
Okay. But it didn't-
all the way behind East Tuscan section runs all the way. It's a, I was bigger when I got, walking it.
But I mean, it doesn't go all the way up to, I guess that would be the other end of it, Worcester of the North, I think.
Mhm. No, that would be
So that's a part that was there before.
State, Robinson,
That's state, isn't it?
yeah, Robinson, State, down by Homewood.
Robinson State and Border of Coventry, you're saying.
Yeah, it borders Coventry, yeah.
Right, I mean, that's the area you're. just-
Yeah, that's the area I'm on. Rose Acres.
See where that is, or do you want to talk about more later when we can?
No, I just said that was the, that's what I was telling them, that was the area right there.
Oh, okay.
Quick question, Bill, maybe you know this. There on the Austin Village part, there's two little blips that stick out at the bottom of it there. There are two properties on the other side of Lockwood that are actually like this. That's, I didn't know.
Yeah, two homes that were annexed back in, I believe, the 90s,
Okay.
early 2000s.
I didn't know anything on that side of the street.
You're referring to these two little clips?
Yeah, yeah.
How in the world would that happen?
I guess they must have asked to be annexed in or something.
Yeah, since then, that annexation laws have changed.
Yeah.
But it was a little easier then.
That was down Culberson, is that the name of it off the State Street?
No, this is the address that one of our councilwomen brought up about trash pickup. That's
No, Culbertson is out here. Culbertson is to the east of that Austin
Oh,
Village
okay,
block where
okay,
those two little blips to the south.
I know.
So do we, just for purposes of staying on track, do we want to go review this list and kind of, I think we all agree that Homewood doesn't make sense, so I'll mix that. Columbia Heights does make sense.
These barges keep
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, me too.
Third, make just these barbers and just pull that right into it.
Add it Homewood.
I was at home with these barbers.
Yeah. And we thought that we'd come up with name for the 3 question marks.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the question mark there in the middle, is Van Buren Homes and BMW, the old BMW. All the area around the old Beulah Light, which is now Barberton East, and then the east. For some reason jumps up and
Which when I grew up, it was all part of east side.
East side, yeah, exactly.
So we're looking at this right here, the purple area. Are we all agreeing that that's part of East Barberton?
So I'm sorry that I lost you again, but where
Where the Homewood is,
yeah, no, where's the Rose Acres?
below the purple.
yeah, Rose Acres is right about there where the cursor is now.
Okay.
It's on the
Sounds like
alternate.
it's either-
There's a portion of that purple.
Yeah.
Jagged area.
It's on the alternate.
See, the southern portion, but it's also that strip also includes Belgrade Gardens, everything in that. Barberton Tree Service is over there.
So I guess if we can define a north border of Rose Acres,
Do you want to consider Rose Acres a sub-district or a separate neighborhood? So if I'm going back to this chart right here,
your word, Nina, what do you think? You said the people there identify themselves as,
Rose Acres.
Be pretty good.
They pretty much are. There is a Rose Acre street and a drive, and I think that was probably like the original. I don't really have.
because I don't know if this is precedent, but I mean, when I was growing up, I would have called Austin Estates part of the east side.
Yeah,
But today it would be truly just its own entity, so.
You're right, it's part of the east side.
Could be as well.
but it's also a pretty small area. Yeah, I think it was just north of Azalea, Dahlia, Columbine,
Right.
probably.
And they were just log cabins and stuff.
the farmland up there, that's all that was.
That was part of the farms. Yes.
We can always revisit this too. But is there, do I hear support for a Rose Acres neighborhood, or do we want to make it more of a sub-neighborhood? Neighborhood?
Kind of a separate area because it was kind of been part of our, all that. Like, beans and- So all the council meetings over.
So that. Wasn't done purposely. It was just
Yeah.
done because of.
Yeah, I remember that.
Because of one council, yeah,
You swap your seat. That's exactly.
yes, exactly. And I voted, I was seniority, I was not going to let him say where he wanted to sit. They were. Everyone.
I think we solved. This will be Rose Acres, where everyone see where the cursor is. And then the rest of this pink, the purple area will belong to East Barberton.
Yeah.
Purple area to the south of East Barber. No, west of East Barber. Yeah, when I was growing up, that was just pretty east side. Though I would guess we would have considered things to the ordinance that happened for
Just on Snyder, it's
that's not stated itself. So,
Yeah, I think that would.
everyone agree, in agreement there?
really, from playing the biggest single,
Yeah, it's certainly a big chunk. Big chunk of the main paper.
Now, when they did the redistricting, though, I think it was in Ward, it was divided between, 3 and 2 and 3. And then when they changed it, part of that, where it says question mark beside, that's actually Ward 3, to be opposite six.
Right. But
And
then,
then I got those acres.
it's all of Snyder Town and Ward 3 or?
Yes.
All of it is.
All of it. But that purple area question mark, some of that is Ward 2 and some of that's Ward.
What we're talking about is nothing to do with wards.
No, but I mean, that's how it's
Yeah.
kind of divided.
What word is Moody?
New Haven's in 3,
Are they?
Rose Acres in 2. It's just,
I guess, from my perspective, the only other one on here that I can refer for.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. In terms of this question mark here, you want to both, the Warner's Boulevard Highway, New Portage. Where does that fit in this piece of the puzzle? The Warner's, North Barber, this one, where the first is right here.
I could see everything that's out the water that would be important for it.
Yeah. Yeah, in fact, we're on the tote path. It's just in that, you sign there, it's like. It's in that general area right there. I can see it. In fact, you know, they have the Indian up there, Indian section.
Yeah, I mean, that, we think of, water.
So you think, right to Waterloo right here? You think this area where the crossing is belongs to, New Portage?
I would have not the whole thing.
Yeah, I think the whole thing, I mean, wraps around there.
That whole area was a history of
Right.
the Indian Reed, that whole area. Indian area through there, so.
Everyone good with that?
Reiterate my comment about the water here. I think that we could get someone to figure it out.
Let me go back. We talked about changing the
Van Heining, that runs over the Van Heining.
I agree, man, I need to meet with all the town.
The other side.
Those
of
are
the
your
street.
names, so. and those three, those are in there, yeah.
I'm not sure I would like to. Then with Van Heining, we have encapsulated, I guess, where the high school, middle school is. And then this will.
I'm questioning, shouldn't you have gone north of that? This part. I think this triangle would be surprised to be put in the board. I mean, in the.
So coming down Erie Street,
Erie Street's pretty much the border, yeah.
yeah. And then coming directly down here, Erie Street would be continuing, you think it would go down?
I think very easily you could, because there's homes there that go all the way down to Fairview. That would probably fit more. You can see example, I think it's not an important part in that area.
Everyone in agreement there? Okay, any other border or boundary disputes before we go back to what's the names?
I guess I'll just say, one possible dividing line. Trying to figure out if it's a Erie cross, or where do you make that line? Very possibly, right.
Okay.
So it would be, yeah.
Yeah.
Which I am, I just don't know which side.
The green side.
But it's yellow here.
Really following that right there, the old one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we answered the question mark. Cleared up a couple boundary lines. Anything else jump out to anyone? I guess here's another question. Do we think Columbia Heights and Columbia Lake are two different neighborhoods? Do you think?
Columbia Heights is always going to be. So Center Road up on the hill, back to the Catherine, yeah.
Yeah, I would say the roof is separate.
So that's well defined right there.
Yeah, yeah. It's like,
Liberty was that new section built over there.
yeah.
The reason was all the reasons.
I think that maybe Liberty farmers.
No, built for the reason.
So I think you're right.
I know it's a bright stuff.
The park's a little there. Yeah.
Yeah, bright side.
I guess, back to Palmer, I don't know if anybody else has thought about that, but I think you could very easily make a case for that Palmer district part of downtown slash.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
I never heard of Palmer.
I'm fine with that. So that would,
Be kind of surprised if anybody would do it a little bit different.
it would even be a sub-district of Lake Anna.
Could be, yeah, but you're left to have now.
No, we gotta call. Snyder's Heights.
That came up on one of the flats that you found, the Snyder side.
I mean, I don't want to offend anybody. I mean, you could take a survey of the people that live over there. When you call,
We might prefer to be called South Park.
South Park, I think that new generation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there is a bit of a stigma associated
Yes,
with
there
it.
is.
South Park. I don't know what side of town it is.
how do we grow up?
Okay.
Yeah.
This was the other, and this probably doesn't resonate with anyone. Emmerman and Davies was a allotment in that area.
I'm sorry, excuse me.
It's up on the screen there, yeah. Emmerman and Davies is the name of an allotment.
Is that Barberton?
We can, yeah, it probably doesn't resonate with anyone.
Yeah, I was gonna say, that's not even Barberton names, it's not Barberton.
We did through. Take about 3 or 4 minutes.
So we,
Check the big boundaries, open questions.
we're at 16, yeah.
16?
Well, we added Homewood and Columbia Heights for a minute, then we did away with Homewood. Then we did away with Palmer. And then we added Rose Acres.
We still have Columbia Heights and Columbia Wood.
Columbia Heights, Columbia Way.
Good, we still have.
Also, North Barberton is referred to as Newton Park. A couple of the items we found. Do we prefer Newton Park? Or-
I know it's.
There is a big park there.
No, it's more than.
Yeah, just north end.
The north end,
North Barberton.
I don't know all about that, so. North end, is that the way you want to label it?
North Barberton.
I mean, it's consistent with the other 4 directional
Yeah.
districts.
And then the last one, West Barberton. Highland we found, I don't know if that's a sub-neighborhood or,
Well, there was a Highland school there, which now is about, what, 10 homes. So, but
Yeah, West Barberton.
but that area is up on the west side of this Highland.
It might have been the thought, that might have been,
Yeah.
you know, I don't know,
Well,
where I live, that there's a name too for that. In the farm or something.
Okay.
okay? We'll clean up this map and send it back out. But any other questions before we move on? One last slide here. So we started this process, but I think we'll want to identify neighborhood assets and opportunities. So a nice thing I think is every neighborhood in the city of Barberton has a park. So we started to assemble, this list will be modified based on what we heard, but we started to assemble kind of the assets in each neighborhood. So all the parks, historical assets, proximity to the interstate, proximity to towpath, major retail and maybe even schools in the area. So,
Used to be a whole bunch, used to be a school in there, but no longer.
yeah.
12, I think.
There's at least 9. Not even one element.
We have,
Hazelwood,
Um,
Farm, Woodford,
Yeah.
Sandstrom.
According to DOI, and senior high. A lot of people.
So did you have a time frame for this? at all?
We haven't, I wanted to share, just open this up for dialogue, and I'm fine, talking about that with everyone here tonight, kind of what we position have on the table.
Well, I guess it depends what you're gonna do. If you're taking it to the neighborhoods themselves,
Right,
there's like a year to get meeting in every one of these areas.
right. I mean, internally, we can start some of this planning process because I don't expect there, maybe some of the naming will change, maybe some slight boundary modifications, but I think in large part, if we've started that and can start to put together some strategies around vacant land reuse and how that plays into the right sizing. So when we mentioned right sizing, I think of a lot of neighborhoods back when they were settled, people didn't know they had floodplain in the backyard. Now we know about floodplain. We're trying to remedy that. So right sizing the neighborhood would probably include not trying to build in the floodplain in the future. That's just one example. How we dispose of vacant land, things like that. Those types of things. So. Yeah, if anyone has any other suggestions, these are kind of just things that we were want to throw out. Yeah. But that's all I got. Productive dialogue on exercise. All right. Thanks for your attention. That was an over an hour then. No.
Well, take a listen. Anybody need a break? Okay. Any old business?
Business.
No.
Can you just comment on the Mars reclamation yard issue that we had last time, that resolved?
Stacy and I met with the gentleman who had proposed the auto salvage yard. We found, I think Jim Washington was also in on a phone call. I don't know if he was, when we met with him, I don't think he was on a conference call. But, the gentleman came in, he said that he had also been looking at other communities. We told him the limiting factor in terms of him, land in Barberton was the salvage yard that essentially limited his operation. He was storing vehicles outdoors for I think more than 10 days. Was that was in the code of business, and that really limited his opportunity to open up shop here in Barberton, unless he were to close that salvage operation. So the junk cars that were stored inside, and the expense of that was prohibitive for him wanting to locate here. So I think we talked about there's probably a shift in pendulum back in the day because Barberton, I think, was known at one time for having a lot of salvage areas, but then the development pretty much shifted in opposite direction. Like we often see when we use to try to, remedy that problem. Not allow it. We acknowledge that. He was aware of he started looking at it. But yeah, we haven't heard since that meeting. He told us that he wished not to pursue this, to decide anything.
Did we take his application? Ron brought up.
I don't know if it happened.
It was not refunded. I mean, we still had the mail go out and the notification paper, but if you guys want to talk about it, we can. But it did not go backwards.
If he didn't make us think about it, then I guess I personally don't think we need to, but I know Ron kind of hinted at that.
I think our applications generally say non-refundable application.
Okay, thanks. We're still on deck, I guess, and miscellaneous discussions.
Yeah, so a couple things. We met, David was actually part of the meeting. We met David and Susan doing Stacy and Ivy toured with the State Historic Preservation Office, essentially the local historic district. We walked the district. We also walked the areas outside and drove areas outside the district to see if there was any potential areas that we want to nominate for the National Register Historic District. So that's something that we continue to explore, and that will open us up to, or developers, per se, to restoring some of the historical building stock to get tax incentives to be sure. So that's something we continue to do.
I'll just add, my wife Susan was included because she's in charge of exactly family. In fact, I probably was the outsider, but Ron couldn't make the trip, so. And we did talk to the lady a lot about trying to correct the misconceptions of some of the downsides of having your building, your property designated. Because a lot of people will say things like, well, I can't cut my lawn anymore, I can't, whatever. There's lots of misinformation about what happens if your property or building is designated. I don't know if she promised to get some things back to us, or told us where we could go in a nice way.
I think she said she was going to send us a couple of examples of band work in Western Ohio, was one of the communities she mentioned how they're going gangbusters there in terms of whether or not they're getting the historic tax credits. They're going gangbusters for restoring the buildings. They just said, I think that week they nominated, got their nomination certified through the Parks Service, the National Park Service, I think certified the national. But yeah, she's been pointing us in the direction of communities that are doing similar to what we're looking at right now. And how to benefit them. Stacy, I can't think of anything. I know there's going to be something that I can come back to, but I can't think of.
So piggyback on Trevor's neighborhood plan, we have decided, after talking to Trevor and the mayor, we decided to temporarily put a hold on the city-owned properties as far as selling those. We want to identify what properties are vacant, what properties we own, and specifically look at them per neighborhood to see what would be best for each neighborhood. The types of zoning that we have, we're working with Summit County Landing to get us a list of certified delinquent tax properties with houses on them and also just vacant land. So we can identify where problem areas are so we can make better attack those. So currently, right now, we have put a hold on selling any city land to neighboring property owners. And then to move forward with that, we have also decided that we would like to put a moratorium on a few types of businesses that have been inquiring a lot lately. One is used car lots, one is entertainment device arcades, the other one is storage units. We're getting a lot of inquiries about storage units. And I thought the mayor wanted to include dollar bills. Just until we can better identify the neighborhoods, look at the development code, figure out if there's any tax amendments that we need to change. Maybe with the car dealerships, because I think on West Road we have like 14 of them, maybe putting a type of a distance, or you can only have so many within the city, or working with Berkshire and see what we can put in those things. But we would like to put a moratorium on those for 6 or 9 months, and so we get a better grasp on the neighborhoods and the land we have available.
We see Facebook lighting up with anti-business.
I know.
So,
Well, these aren't really economic development, we're the item, so.
I don't disagree, that's the comment.
yeah,
I'm gonna get hate mail soon, I know.
when you say,
Just don't cut down any trees.
when you say we would like to put a moratorium,
We, So Trevor and Mayor and Melissa and I were talking, and then we had many conversations with Nina. To move forward on this.
Okay, let me rephrase my question. How does that happen? Who is the authority that makes that happen?
So I was talking with Urban Sugarman, and I do believe that goes directly to council, because it's not making any changes to the ordinance, it's just the ordinance putting a hold on these items. So it will go straight to council.
So we need to ask.
But we will get a recommendation from you prior to.
So I'll be in that.
So we can have it, I'll be all over Facebook.
Okay, well, everybody gets their turn in the barrel.
Yeah.
Mine's gonna run like so.
Yeah, well, we put your name in 6 times, so.
But I think those are all updates that I have that are new updates. We're still going forward with the dental program.
So do you think by next meeting, we might have something for the moratorium?
I would like.
Okay. What's the way back there?
Hello. On Friday, HUD announced an additional CDBG COVID allocation to the city of Barberton for another $111,000. We're still waiting on HUD guidelines to determine how exactly we can use that money. It may be just as we have been doing thus far, or we might be able to use it for mortgages, rent, some utility assistance. So waiting for HUD to kind of give me some more guidance on that. We'll have to go to city council, just like we did with the first allocation, with some sort of a plan, and then we'll have to go out for just a 5-day comment period, and then we'll have to apply for the funding and wait to receive it. But that's what's new in CDBG world.
Do we have a mechanism for finding out where the need is to determine what you just said, the difference between putting it towards rent and mortgages versus small businesses versus something else?
We do actually. I mean, we initially were going to put out, I want to say it was like, what was it, 200,000 to small businesses for small business loans, or actually grants, to the businesses who were affected by COVID. However, the whole business industry has been saturated with CARES Act funding, that it was very difficult for us to be able to give our money to other businesses because of duplication of funds. So HUD doesn't want us giving money from CARES Act, and also, another organization giving the same business CARES Act funding, and that also is the same thing as going through the Small Business Association and payroll protection program. So there was just so much out there for small businesses that it was very difficult for us to be able to give it away. So we've reduced our grant program to, I believe, $60,000. So the businesses, so much as far as working capital, as far as what we can do for them is very limited. What I am seeing though is a lot of people having some struggles with, the mortgages and rents and utilities and things like that. But we try to put our ears out there and listen to all the nonprofits to find out what's going on. I've made a lot of phone calls. We're trying to, make the absolute best use of the funds. We did put some CDBG COVID funds to use for a virtual job fair platform for our low to moderate income individuals, because you can't go to job fairs right now because of social distancing. So it's all online right now, and it's a really great feature. So it can, a lot of our residents have the opportunity to get jobs right now. So there really is no way other than to really listen to the community and the nonprofits to find out where the real need is at. But I'm talking to them all the time. We're going to use some COVID funding also for meal delivery to seniors. We will try to find maybe some local restaurants in town who can provide dietary, restricted diets to seniors. And then the hard part's going to be is going to find restaurants that will be able to deliver these meals to the seniors. But that's another thing that we have in the works too with our COVID money.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
You're good. You're better.
Well, thank you. And kind of follow up with what you said. I don't think there's any harm in taking a step back from some of these businesses or developments, you call them that, and just looking at how do we best serve our community, how do we best make use of the land that's available, because we don't have a lot of available land. We don't have a lot of clean land in the industrial city. So taking a step back and making the best use of our land to maximize what we have, sites that we have some control. We're not saying no to these things, we're just saying, hey, let's take a step back. Figure this out. Especially in light of what's going to happen post-COVID. What's going to happen with retail, what's going to happen with all these different businesses. So I think it's a good idea. I know a lot of other communities are talking about doing similar actions. One thing I want to bring up, I believe a copy was handed out. We have a code, one of our ordinances is for vacant properties, whether it's a vacant property that they have to register, or it's a vacant house that the bank has to register, or it's a vacant commercial industrial building. And so this was put in several years ago, in 2008. Confirm that. Right now, vacant commercial and industrial buildings, you're supposed to register with the city and pay $250 a year. Doesn't matter what size the building is. So I wanted to kind of stagger cost with the size of the building. Justification is the larger the building, the larger the footprint, parcel, more property maintenance, possibilities going wrong there. So I'm looking at other communities, everyone's looking at that they have similar setups. So I want to go to council to change this where the square footage of the building, commercial or industrial, 0 to 10,000 square feet is very large. Footprint, $250 a year. 10,001 square feet, $20,500 per square feet. 20,001 square feet, $50,000, $1,000, $50,000, $100,000 square feet, $2,000 foot. And I've been looking at this for quite a while before the actions of BW, so BW did not force this. But if you look at their campus, that 5 buildings, BW still owns the buildings, they're not maintaining. And I don't know how many calls or emails I've received complaints about horrible. And property grass is part of it. All the other stuff. To look at, they pay $250 a year for something more than 5,000 square feet. On the other side, we made a concerted effort moving forward to reach out to the building and say, hey, we'll be that third party to match up your building with requires. So, and it's going to be going pretty well. We don't want, this isn't a money game. It's building businesses or making profits, register with us. But we want to be there, come to build those buildings for businesses. So we're talking to probably no less than 20 different businesses, sole proprietors to large corporations about your existing businesses expanding in town, new businesses coming. Hopefully next month we have some updates on that front. But I want to put this in front of you. It doesn't have to go to you for a recommendation, but I make a recommendation before it's in the council. But I want to make you aware of it. There it is. So we'll be in W. They have 5 separate buildings, so each building is some square footage.
And that company, the development company that developed these, weren't they going to take title of the building?
They're supposed to take title back in March, is my understanding. did show the building, one of the buildings in the back, construction building yesterday. Tuesday.
Yeah,
And the business that looked at it is very, very interesting. One of the representatives from that development company said, think it's not. They really, but they backed up, we don't even know. So I don't know what the holdup is.
Okay. I thought that was the understanding that they were gonna actually take title. So they haven't said that something happened, but the owner doesn't.
So, still owe property taxes, still tied with BMW. I thought it was supposed to change hands in March.
I'm guessing most businesses know that they're kind of like.
That could be, you know, it's weird. I sit through some webinars, and we'll see office space, for example. Well, we need less office space because people are working from home.
Right.
Or they'll go, well, on the other hand, we need more office space. You can't do it. It's like 70 style offices. And then after a 2-hour webinar, they'll say, well, we really don't know what that is.
yes.
You know, how do we plan? How do we budget? How do we look at development? That's another reason to take a step back and develop the land that we have available.
And that's what I was saying, too, businesses are probably the same mindset. You know, what do we do right now? We don't really know what's gonna happen. We want to commit to anything. We're probably not really willing to commit much. You know?
I've heard rumors of fast food restaurants, and larger restaurants, all going to drive-through, carry out, patio seating outside, or park. You know, they're very limited venue inside seating. So that changed the whole footprint of our restaurant.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, everything could change tomorrow. So.
So you're saying you would appreciate recommendation, especially recommending city council with legislation? Anybody want to make that?
Well, I wanted to know, what do we have now in place? Do we have commercial and industrial?
Yeah, it's just a
And what is
flat 200.
250,000?
This is for a vacant building, this is the cost. According to the guidelines you have. Right now, it's just no matter what size it's 250. What you want to change is set it for the square footage. It's strictly a annual fee, if you will, for a vacant building.
The building has to be vacant for a minimum of 6 months before we can implement this. So there's, it's a wiggle room there for the owner. But I think what the goal is to get it out. So if someone called us up and said, hey, you have to send an invoice in. Workers are. I have no problem.
Right.
Holding on to that invoice and the other side. We create that database of vacant properties, outdoors, footage, all that stuff. What businesses in contact us, what they're looking for. So I reached out to University of Akron Law School, other schools within the university. We have any reason for that? So we're looking for offices. Back there, university. Balance innovation. Yeah. Board of Realtors, different organizations. We're here to be a partner. Increase opportunity for jobs in the town. What do you guys
Will it be in form of a motion or a recommendation or what would be it?
I move that we respectfully recommend the city council.
Okay, I move that we recommend the city council that new pricing structure be implemented based on square footage of vacant building. Yeah. New fee set up to proportional to the size of it. The interest of encouraging some activity. Then give them, I'll say.
Could I for you to amend your terminology to say commercial and industrial vacant properties?
Yes, commercial and industrial.
Bill, your second. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Sanchez? Mr. Best?
Yes.
Mr. Nguyen?
Yes.
Mr. Wood?
Yes.
Thank you very much. I will send this over to you guys tomorrow.
Okay.
I'll be ready. That's it. Yeah, we're trying to, I really applaud the efforts of the planning department, the finance department. Really, we do a weekly COVID call. I know the CARES Act funding, we get federal money, we get money from the state, money from, through those organizations to the county, to us. Guidance has changed most of them. So we're trying to make heads or tails. I've asked department heads already to give your budget for 2021, which we have. So we're gonna start having budget. We're going to change several times. We're going to plan projects and programs. It's more than complicated. I don't know. It's just crazy stuff like so I happily goes on to that because not only are we short of workforce, we're doing more with the dark. So you gotta- there's great programs out there, but guidance is. Still in question.
Trevor, any upcoming trainings?
No trainings have been really scheduled. There might be an online, posting. There, I haven't heard anything. Obviously, anything in person is canceled.
It's the APA for this year has been canceled.
Yeah, we haven't had any updates on that at all.
Yeah. We'll be able to conduct ourselves without that.
Maybe we'll have to do that.
Yeah. Okay, it feels like we just had a work session. Does any others that you need to talk about? Or
I guess I have a question.
I thought it was exceptional. The gentleman from Main Street Medina, Matt, he came to speak about their program. I think we actually have a copy of his presentation, so if anyone wants.
Yeah, I can send it to you, you can watch it online.
Okay.
So I'll remind you. I'll remind you tomorrow.
Who's jealous of our building?
I do wish he had, my fault for not asking the question a different way, but the question of how do you start a project? That farmer's market, or I mean, farmer's exchange building, that they completely repurposed the retail and apartments. You start that right.
Yeah, and remember the bank, did it right, the bank was the wall was in, turned it into a drug house. We got one right downtown, right, come on. You know, that's, I was sitting there. Right down there in Kodak, you got restaurants, whatever shop there, so, market, whatever. Yeah, I believe,
Anything restaurant?
but I mean, it's right there up in Kodak. Yeah. But how do you take something like that on?
We'll let you know, listen, we'll let you
Yeah,
know.
all
You ready?
right. I saw that. Yeah.
Well, we always do that. You know, I mean, we go to the APA things and there's little birds give their presentation about how they resurrected a grain silo into a, shooting gallery or whatever. And it's all, hey, we could do that. We could do that. But somebody's got to feed us $1 billion. Okay, anybody else, anything?
One last update, and we don't have details on this yet, but Summit County Metro Parks, they're going to have a meeting with us. The mayor will be included, I'll be included. They're trying to connect the Kodak Trail to River Creek Metro Parks out in Boston. And we'll cut through Washington and Barberton. To the Kodak. Run, know where the Erie Depot is. That rail line, I think that's what I'm looking to. But we'll find out more details. There.
Thank you.
One motion to adjourn, or not?
It would probably be appropriate.
Thank
We are adjourned. Thank you all for coming, and where's Ron's card?